Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I have a special guest. He is a productivity expert and co-author of the best-selling book, The Power of Remote, with over 25 years of leadership experience including working with global brands like Disney. He helps organizations unlock team potential and thrive in remote and hybrid work environments. As a partner of Vertera, he's passionate and empowering leaders to build productive, profitable, and happy teams sharing practical strategies for success in today's evolving workplaces. So without further ado, welcome Shane Spraggs.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So that's a very intense bio. So tell us a little bit about what kind of led you to get into this field of work and what led to this passion.
I've always been interested in organizing and optimizing things. And my mom tells the story of when I was younger, I would go down the aisles of a grocery store and organize the shelves as I went. And so I got lucky, I think, in a lot of ways. I came into my career when the internet was starting to become a thing. And so unlike today, where a lot of people these days have to sit back and decide who they want to be, it found me. I got involved in software development, very interested in making things do things. Myself and a few friends started a business in 1998, doing website development. At that time, people didn't have websites, so it was, like shooting fish in a barrel for customers. And they were designers. So there was three of them, one of me, and we quickly learned that was the wrong ratio of designers to software developers. So we had to build a team. We had the demand to keep them busy. And obviously I was working very hard to get, to do my part of the bargain. So we had to hire people, and that got me into management very quickly. And anything else, I had to understand how to do it properly. And then that turned into leadership. I took my PMP, project management, joined Disney for a while. I worked there as the leader of the PMO and responsible for the production operations of the studio here in Kelowna. And we're working on a number of small upstarts since then. And now I'm a business consultant helping people with to run their businesses. And along the way, I found time to co-author a book with Cynthia Watson called The Power of Remote.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about the book.
It was coming as no surprise to most that the book is about remote work, and it was released during the pandemic. We started talking about doing the book fairly shortly after the pandemic hit as a means to share our expertise around remote working. Cynthia has a real in-depth experience in it as well. She got her master's thesis in telecommunications back in 1993. So she had lots of experience as well to bring to the table. And we wanted to focus it more on the company as opposed to the employee. So there's a lot of books out there on how to be a good employee remotely, but this one deals with the three groups of people who I felt uh, suffered greatly at the start of the pandemic. These are the executive team who no longer could see their company or people, and they had to figure out a new way to lead the company. Managers who no longer had people at arm's length to bother manage off the side of the table, and HR. HR also had some challenges once the pandemic hit. If you'd never done remote work before, it's not so simple as just going home with your computer and doing your job. There's more to it. And how do you hire and fire people remotely? It's a real challenge. So those are the three main areas we focus on. But we also provide some direction on how to manage projects and how to do sales properly, which is one of the earliest forms of remote working. So just some tips there.
And if somebody's interested in looking it up or purchasing it, where can they do so?
Oh yeah, we're published through Forbes. And so if you search for the power of remote, you're going to find a lot of some pages related to it, but it's on Amazon, and you can find it through, Amazon there. And we also have an audiobook, which is available also on Spotify of all places. We found that out accidentally, actually. Spotify launched their book section, and we said, "Hey, I wonder if we're here." And sure enough, we're here there. So if you have a premium account on Spotify, you can listen to our book. And yeah, I'm also available on LinkedIn. So I happen to be the only Shane Spraggs there. So if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, who knew, being so lucky with a unique last name and first name, that it would be a valuable thing at some point in my career.
I love that. I know when we're growing up, we're like, why can't I have a regular name? But then stuff like this, you're like, you know what? I tend to
Yeah.
appreciate I didn't before.
So you search for Shane Spraggs, you're going to find me, which is great.
So I do want to dive in a little bit on team dynamics. So I know that you focus a little bit of understanding the why behind team behaviors. And for me, I I geek about this. My research for my doctorate was all about employee retention and turnover. So knowing the why of why individuals end up like leaving or staying and like what and is causing like the bottlenecks in the industry is super crucial for a business to thrive. So tell me a little bit about like how you dive into the team dynamics and how that
Yeah.
goes into play.
One of the things I found is that, find these articles that focus on just one thing, right? But it's a system. The whole thing has to really work. And so everything from does the company have a solid purpose? Do people feel connected to that purpose? Is it regularly communicated to the team on how much progress they're making towards that purpose and what their impact is on that? So are the executive team doing a great job communicating how each of the tasks or project the team is working on filter back up to the the mission or vision of the company, to how you pay people, which is obviously a very important thing. And I'm sure you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But it has to be at least enough, so they're not looking at their paycheck and going, well, "Can I get something better somewhere else?" There's retention issues around how well you reward and recognize individuals. So the better you are at providing the feedback, and then you bring remote work into the equation, and it really comes down to how they're managed and how well they feel part of the business. And it's important for a manager to do a decent job delegating. They have to know how to run meetings. They have to understand the importance of giving people time to focus on their work, as well as encouraging them not to work after hours and giving them time to relax and refresh. And all these things have to play together in order for people to really appreciate the place they work. And some people just have it naturally. Some people just don't get in people's way. And hey, here's the work. I want you to come along with me on this. And as we go, I'm going to recognize your accomplishments and pay you accordingly for it.
It's just really paying attention to those things. And I think if you're a manager listening to this, really integrating those systems so that your employees actually can still work remote, be productive, and have that work life balance. I think if a lot of the issue is that we assume that people are doing things, but we don't
Yeah.
actually regulate it. We don't remind them. We don't do things. It's so easy for people to get so consumed in the daily tasks and not take their lunch break, not take their breaks, not work a little bit extra here and there. I've have so many friends that work remote jobs that will stay till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night on their computers and won't have that break. It's different than closing your office, leaving, going home. Your work is here. So you really have to have that self discipline. And then as a manager, you should really remind your staff and also lead by example. Because if you're sending out emails 10 o'clock at night, they're seeing like, I also have to respond at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. I had a really good experience early on in my career that really taught me this. So being in software development, you hear a lot about productivity. And I recall one night I was grinding on a project, and I got started around midnight, and I was just working hard. I thought I was had the most intense coding experience, and I was just really into it. And before I knew it, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Wow, that time went fast. Then I looked at the code the next day, and I had hardly accomplished anything. And so it made me realize that afterwards, if someone was watching me work, I was probably sitting there just really slowly just typing the keys, and I was maybe as focused, but I just wasn't being as successful or productive as I could have been had I had time to go to bed, come back refreshed, and really have some time to focus. The way I like to look at it is managers have to have a duty to think of their team members as humans, and as humans, we need certain criteria to be successful and to be productive and to be healthy in everything from our physical to mental health. And it's a challenge to really understand the whole thing. And young managers fail at one or two of those system things that break the thing apart.
Yeah, I think a lot of new managers, if they're not really trying that, go in thinking that the most important thing is getting all the tasks and done, making the sales, doing whatever you need to do to help the business grow. However, if you don't nurture and take care of your staff that is doing the work, I think that's what ends up having the turnover, has ends up hurting the company in
Absolutely.
so many different ways.
It shocks me that companies don't invest time and money into training their team members. I look at that as we had problems with good managers before the pandemic. We knew about this concept of take a good employee and make them a bad manager. We've had that saying for years. And then the pandemic hit, and we expect them to learn how to be a manager without being able to see and interact in real time with the people they're working with. It's just a recipe for failure. Now, the techniques of being a good manager, of being able to delegate and facilitate and follow up on the work people are doing are not new. You just have to do them remotely. That's all. And when you do them, you actually create a very successful team. And there's been lots of studies that have shown that working remotely doesn't actually impact your ability to connect with people, to build teams. There's a study by the Wharton School of Neuroscience who talked about they did a study on a bunch of people who were being creative together online, and they had this really great statement. It says, "Brains that fire together wire together."
Mm,
And it's really no different than if you think about kids playing Call of Duty. They have teams and that they grow of people they've never met. And we've all seen these YouTube videos of players who've been players for 8 years and then finally meeting the people they play with in person. And they're perfect friends, right? They've built a relationship. And so it just debugs all the naysayers out there about the fact that you can't do this remotely and work, but they have to understand the tools and techniques that allow them to do that.
yeah. So what, from your experience, what has been one of the biggest challenges that managers or businesses face when they have remote workers?
It's really just not taking the time to understand the work and understand the employees or the person doing the work. To give you an example, if they have a task to do, delegating is a really difficult activity. If you don't know how you're doing it, and I could probably spend an hour talking just with delegation. But the simple Coles notes are if you basically want to think of it as a journey, you want to give them point A and point B and tell them, here's where we're starting, here's where we're going, and then help them figure out the steps along the way. But in an ideal world, they're telling you when they think it's going to be done, but you're also coaching them to say, okay, I think you can do it better and faster, but not too much faster, not too much better. And you also need to help more junior employees break down that task into smaller achievable bits. And then you have to capture it in some sort of system that you can remember, because there's a lot of things happening these days. Everyone's so distracted, but you're not going to remember that you gave John that task on Tuesday last week to do that thing that you wanted, especially if you've got 30 other things that had to be done. And that's where a lot of managers fail. So they think their job is just communicating stuff and letting the team do their work. And then they're like, oh, that was 2 weeks ago. Well, I haven't followed up, and they're still working on it. And they need help, but they've spaced on it and forgotten entirely. A good manager and a good project manager similarly have to do the work to keep track of stuff. And that maybe isn't appealing to a lot of managers.
Yeah, there's this phrase that in leadership they always say, "I don't want to babysit my staff." However, it's not that you're babysitting them, like you said, they have so much things, like so many tasks on their plate, they don't know which one to prioritize. And if you don't have that direct communication with them that, okay, there's these 5 projects, these are the order I want you to work
Yeah.
on. One, here are the deadlines, this is the progress, like really breaking it down, giving them an actual roadmap of how each project's supposed to work. It's hard for them to sometimes, it's like executive overfunctioning, especially I'm neurodivergent. So for me, the more options I have, the worse I have at delegating stuff. So I need to be things broken down into systems so that it works and it helps smooth the process.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it all depends on the employee as well. So knowing your team members, a junior employee might need a lot more hand holding. You might need to spend and check in with them daily and break down the tasks with them so they get the hang of it. A more senior employee, you might be able to rely on them to do all that work themselves. And you might check in midway and see if they're still on track, and then see if they have any questions, make sure that they're not. It's really on you to. It's your responsibility to make sure that they're on track and they're not lost somewhere. And there's a fine line between management responsibilities and micromanagement. We don't want to do the work for them. We don't want to leer over them while they're doing the work. We don't want to take control of the document while they're typing it. But we do want to make sure that they have clear steps to success.
Yeah. And it just helps. It just makes sense to help. I'm a fan of one sheets and just have step by step on how to do processes. It's
Hmm.
remember everything. So having a manual, having something to visually see in case you forget something, just to double check your work is phenomenal. Same thing with certain projects like, hey, even though we've done this several times, if it's a new employee, it's going to take a couple times for them to be able to absorb the processes and actually think critically
Yeah.
above just the rules and to make those judgment calls of, should I break the rule to get this done, or should I just follow everything to the T? And what's going to be more productive?
And I made a mistake when I was younger as a young manager. I wrote everything down and I assumed that because I wrote a process document, people were going to follow it. But what I've learned since is that the process needs to be transitioned into a system where things just work because they're connected that way and the software is accepting the certain fields, whatnot. But then systems have to eventually transition to habits. and then habits need to become a part of the culture.
Mm.
And so habit again is great for an individual, but unless it gets transitioned on to a new employee or someone else on the team, it's temporary, right? So you just don't have anything. It will last for a period of time. It's only when it's in the culture that someone learns it by default when they're onboarding. And that's where the process talk becomes important again, because you can say, here's your frame of reference, here's a system to follow. And once you've got your 10,000 hours in it, as they say, now it's your habit and you understand it essentially, and you can do it with your eyes closed, and you've now had it pass on to you. So it's important to deal with it, the whole thing.
I completely agree. And I want to switch topics just on stress management, just because I know that you're writing your book, you're going on podcasts, you're consulting, you're spinning a lot of plates, as one says. At the same time, what do you do to maintain your stress levels to have that work life balance?
First of all, I'm well aware of the fact that I need work-life balance. And one of the things we say in the book is that what makes a good remote worker is somebody who has a life outside of work.
Hmm.
They have something to look forward to and something to move on to. I am very involved there's a mountain here in town that I hike every morning. It's about an hour long. I get up at 5:25 and get up there and hike up and down with a friend. So it's a social activity as well. Gives
Okay.
me a chance to decompress, hear about their experiences at their place of work, and we get to do a bit of gossip and whatnot. And then I'm very involved in the community terms of the business network here. So we put on regular events through my current business, and this time of year, lots of things to go to, and also play music. So my favorite times each week is actually tonight is Tuesday. I will be hopefully getting together and play music 2 or 3 hours long, and there's 3 hours there where I'm not thinking of anything else except for how it feels and how it sounds. And I also have a family, so I keep active with them. I'm very clear about, hey, this is my home life, this is my work life, and my office is separate from my bedroom. It's separate from my house. Just I walk downstairs and I'm at work, and all those things matter.
That's awesome. And it's good to diverse yourself in these different things that bring you joy, that able to create that escape. I think a lot of people tend to feel that everything is one-sided. So I go to work, go home, sleep, repeat. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
don't have the time. I This is a lot of the clients that I work with, they always say, I don't have the time to work out. I don't have the time to go to social functions. I don't have the time to do all of this stuff. But the thing is that you're depleting your social battery. You're like your energy battery, I should say. And if you don't fill it up with joy and things to look forward to, it's so easy for you to feel drained all the time, tired all the time because you're not
yeah.
breaking that cycle. You're creating burnout. So by doing what you do, which I commend you because I cannot wake up at 5 a.m. to go hike every day. So kudos to you. But if you're a morning person, that's something that you can definitely do. Or just going on like hanging out with friends or going to like a club or something just to be able to help socialize. That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And I look at it as back in the day when when we had an office job, you did a lot of socializing in the office, and that for someone like myself, who I'm a bit of an introvert, and by the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to talk to anybody else. It really narrowed my friend group to people at the office. Not to say I didn't have good friends there, but I didn't choose them. They were
Yeah,
people who were working there when I joined. And now with remote work, not only can I choose who I hang out with, the average employee now saves about an hour and a half of commuting each day. So there's your time back to do something else. Take that hour and a half, and it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you do it, you give it to yourself.
exactly. And a lot of people don't look at it that way. They think, oh, I still have all these things to do. But if you set the right boundaries, if you schedule it out, I say if it's not on your calendar, it's not going to happen. So like literally plan things, plop them in your calendar, do things that are going to bring you that balance. It's going to happen and you're going to feel rejuvenated and feel more of an ease towards your life.
Absolutely.
That's good stuff. So when it comes to like career development, what would you say is something that has helped you start this venture of you, that if somebody is interested in consulting or doing something similar, how can they start? What are the first steps?
The bit of advice I always give to anyone from a career standpoint is always be able to take advantage of the opportunities that you present themselves. So many people see their career as a series of steps they have control over. It's been my experience that opportunities knock when you least expect them, and
Oh
you have
yeah,
to be you have to be in a position to take advantage of those opportunities when they happen. And so that is staying knowledgeable in your craft on a regular basis, always doing a good job, because that turns into referrals, that turns into next thing. And the big thing for certainly for consultants and anyone else in this industry is networking. You are just not going to find clients by buying social media posts or ad search engine marketing. People want to buy from people, especially these days where there's so much noise out there when it comes to marketing. So you start with your local network, get out there and start talking to people. Nothing beats that. I had a I had a goal last year to have 100 meetings with people, and I probably hit it around the 6 month mark. I learned something new and got value out of every single person I talked to. Sometimes it was small, sometimes it was big, sometimes it led to a project and worked. You have to get out and you have to be proactive with it.
I agree 1,000%. And it's hard because a lot of people see those social media influencers or things that they're like, oh, it comes easy. All they do is post, and then they get clients, but it doesn't really work that way. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things that happens in the back end that really does come down to the social interaction, the actual connection piece where people.
Yeah, I feel that let's take LinkedIn, for example. You can just spend a lot of time posting on LinkedIn. I did for a bit. It's a tough game to play, especially the type of noise you're also competing with, and it can take a lot of your time. And
Mhm.
it feels like you're being productive because you're doing something, but you're putting your time into technology as opposed to into a person.
Exactly. And people ignore the fact that I always say people forget the social part in social media.
Yeah,
It's not the you show, just posting things, it's also interacting with the people that comment, interacting with people, and it's very interesting because I had a whole different shift. I started my business 3 years ago, and I was that very tunnel vision of, like, social media, just post, 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 and I was killing myself trying to just put all of my effort in there, but I didn't get much results, and I switched my philosophies and started networking and started putting myself out there, and all of a sudden, I started getting referrals, I started getting clients, and I was just, "Wow." So it's different mentality, so the piece of advice that you give is very good and something that I always recommend to my clients too.
awesome. Yeah, and surprisingly, when you started looking for how many things require networking, I was reading a book the other day called "The Who." Sorry, the A Method for Hiring. I forget the name of the authors, but it was a fantastic book about how to hire people. And they spent the first 2/3 of the book saying you have to network. You have to find your next employee through networking.
Mhm.
Anytime you see somebody who might be your next employee, tell them, give them your card, tell them to call, have a meeting every Monday with somebody new who isn't an employee yet. And it just went on and on. Like, you have to network to get your next best employees. And everything, especially this day and age, it is all about connecting with real people.
I agree, and that's how sometimes you're gonna get a diamond in the like a diamond in the rough through a resume, but going out and meeting people is does phenomenal things. And there's so many things you can network just from providing services for yourself. So I found a good barber just by networking, and I love
Fair
this
enough.
person. I saw his work, and I was like, perfect. Or
Perfect.
even people that you network with, ask them questions. Do you know of somebody that may be good fit for this, or do you know anybody for this? So even if the person that you're talking to is not related in your niche whatsoever, they can still have value or know someone that they can connect you with. So it's just really utilizing your network correctly and not just going out there and trying to meet everybody too. So there has to be
Yeah.
a strategy with it as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And have your question ready for the next step. So, hey, thank you for this conversation. Is there someone else you can connect me to that needs to hear from me, or have some spiel ready at the end of your conversation to take it from somewhere. So it goes into either opportunity for you or another person they can talk to. And the best work I've received is actually after so and so passed me on to so and so passed me on to this person, about 4 or 5 deep before, and I can trace it right back to that individual. And I have to go back and thank you for it. Hey, just so you know, this person you introduced me to passed it on to these people, and now I have work with this individual. So thank you for that.
Yeah, knowing the little chain and the little webs that kind of
Yeah.
gets moved from one person. It's amazing. So we're at the point of the podcast where we're going to talk about the unicorn lesson. So this is the lesson that you feel has been the most valuable lesson that has impacted either your career or your personal life that you feel the listeners will benefit most from. So what would be the unicorn lesson that you would want to share today?
This is one, unfortunately, I've learned learned the hard way. And it goes along with what we've already talked about quite a bit today. When I worked at Disney, I worked 60, 70 hour weeks, and sometimes 8 hour weeks. This is back in the day before we had really good systems around launches. And I was responsible for handling some of the late night launches. And I would be up on Wednesday nights till 2 in the morning sometimes with the team getting, new software launched. And It wasn't until years later that I looked on my family photo album, and there's pictures of me with my kids that I don't remember. Was like, I've got no idea where this was taken. I don't know what event we were attending. I know how old my daughter is in this photo, but it's just, I don't remember it at all. And it really comes back down to when you focus all your energy and stress on one thing, like a job, you miss out on everything else around you. And there's maybe some time and place for it when you're younger and you're full on with trying to start a new business and you have that time. But the brain has a way of shutting pieces down when other things are more critical. And one of those things are long-term memory, unfortunately. And so I would urge your listeners to really consider what they're giving up, how important. And this is one of the things we saw during the pandemic, the whole people realizing that they didn't have to make all this money to be happy. They can go over here and try a new activity and learn a new skill and that's what's really important. So it's more of a life lesson that I've unfortunately already learned, and I've tried to take it with me into my life going forward that, hey, time with my daughters is precious. And if I don't invest and enjoy it now, I'm going to miss it forever. And that's just for me, but there's probably similar things for other people as well.
I love that. And that's a really good piece of advice because we don't really realize what we're sacrificing. Sometimes we feel like we can do it all,
Yeah.
but no matter what, our brain has to function a certain way in order to focus on whatever we're doing. There's days where I sacrifice friends, family, events that I sometimes forget even happens. I completely agree with you. There's pictures, and my friends sometimes remember you came to my birthday party, you came for an hour and then left because you had another event to go to. And I was like, did I? I was like, I don't remember. I was like, okay. I was like,
Yeah. And there's trade-offs, right? Obviously, there's a place and time for you to invest in your work or your new business or your customer or client, and that has to happen in order for you to enjoy something later on. But it's a balance, and just to remember that it's that your sacrifices.
exactly. And it's just then that self-reflection and really knowing also what is your end goal so you know how long you have to do that. Because that's not something that you can perpetually do forever. It's just
That's right.
gonna bring you out, not gonna bring you content. So finding out what is the end goal, what is the hard stop where you're like, okay, I think I'll be content here and I can start easing back and start putting more effort in other spots in my life.
Absolutely.
This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much, Shane. I really do appreciate your time here. If somebody
Yeah.
wants to purchase your book, get in contact with you, how can they do so?
Purchase the book is easy. It's The Power of Remote. It's right up. I actually have my prop here, and it is available on Amazon. It's also available on Audible as well as Spotify if you prefer to listen to it. And then I happen to be the only Shane Spraggs on LinkedIn. So type my name into the search box. I would happily connect with any of your listeners.
Awesome. And then listeners, if you didn't catch that, you can also scroll down on the show notes and you'll see all the links there with Shane's information. And also if you go to my website at rainbowcareercoaching.com, go to the Unicorn Wall of Fame, you'll see Shane on there along with the other people that have guested on here with his links and his bio on there as well. Friendly reminder for everyone, episodes come out every Friday at 7 a.m. And don't forget to apply Shane's unicorn lesson in your life this week. Thank you so much, Shane, for everything. And any last words before we close?
No, just thanks for having me. This is a good chat.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, everyone. And until next week.